Hello and welcome. My name's Zolf, and it's my pleasure to take you on a guided tour of Arcion for real-time data movement. Arcion is an in-memory, multi-threaded replication solution allowing you to take data from relational data stores, such as SQL Server, and delivering this downstream into a database, data warehouse, or cloud technology such as Databricks downstream. Arcion comes with two different flavors. There's the self-hosted, which can be deployed on-premise or within your VPC. And there's also a self-managed cloud version as well. Now, for the purpose of this demonstration, we'll be connecting to SQL Server that resides on my laptop within a virtual machine. We're going to be moving some historic data as well as change data capture and building the target table structures downstream within Databricks. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at our environment. Looking at SQL Server, we have a source database called TestDB1. We have a table within that called movies, and I've just entered a couple of my DVD collections in there. So we have about 10 records. Now, as part of the demonstration, we'll move this existing data as well as creating some change data. And this is just a simple script just to show some mix of transactions in there. So we're going to be inserting 4 additional records, updating 2 of those records. So you can see for records 11 and 13 will be updated. So where we have Black Panther, that will be updated to Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Where we have Iron Man, that will be updated to Iron Man 2. And then we'll be removing record 12, which is Spider-Man No Way Home. And then inserting 4 more records. So that's about 4, 8 inserts, 2 updates, 1 delete. So let's have a look at Databricks. So in Databricks, on the target, we have a schema called ZQ_DB. However, we don't have any tables created in here. So as part of the demonstration, we'll show you Arcion will enable us to create the target table structures. So there's no manual intervention required for having to prepare your target environment for replication. Arcion will do all the hard work for you. So let's have a look at Arcion. Now I'm using the GUI version of Arcion, which is self-contained within a Docker image. We've got Postgres that's underpinned that to collect metadata about the replication environment. So no physical data is recorded in here, just metadata itself. So we're going to go ahead and sign in. Now, the first time you sign into Arcion, you're going to be presented with a blank canvas with a button to say, let's go ahead and get started. So let's simulate that reaction here. So first of all, in terms of setting up a replication flow, Arcion is going to walk you through the whole process. So there's no coding required. There's no prior knowledge of Arcion that's required here. So let's give this a name, and we'll say it's called Arcion Demo. We can give this a description. So this is SQL Server to Databricks Demo. Now we have a couple of options here. Replication mode is how do you want to move the data? First option is snapshot. Snapshot is our initial load. It will take existing data or historical data that resides already in the tables and move that across. Full mode will give you the benefits of snapshot, but once snapshot is completed, we will enable CDC. So from that point onwards, we'll be tracking changes and propagating that downstream in near real time. We also have a write mode. How do we want to deliver that data to the target? Replacing will enable you to create the target table structures if they do not exist and start applying the data. Truncate will preserve any data structures that reside downstream and will start adding the data. So if there's any data that exists, we will truncate it and then start adding new data in there. Append will help you preserve the source structure as well as existing data and just start adding new data to the end of that. So let's go ahead and choose full mode and replacing. So next, we need to connect to our source. So again, blank canvas. These are some preset configurations I have, but just to show how easy it is to create a connection, we're going to create a new connection. We'll be presented with the technologies. And again, Arcion is always adding to this, so you'll see more and more technologies being introduced. We're going to stick with SQL Server, and we're going to go to continue. So here on the right-hand side will be a guide to guide you through the whole process for how to prepare SQL Server for replication as well as setting it up for replication. So here we can give it a connection name, host of where that instance resides, some connection information, port number, and how do we want to capture from SQL Server. So there's a couple of options in there as well. Now I'm going to go back a couple of screens because I've already got one set up for SQL Server Source. And again, we can look at this and edit or view the connection. So I'm saying the connection name is going to be SQL Server Source, my IP address to connect to the virtual machine. I'm using a specific user here. Authentication type will be native, and I'm just going to stick with change tracking as an example, as opposed to the native method of connecting to SQL Server itself. We can go ahead and test connection for this. So this will just ensure everything is prepared for Arcion to do replication, such as the source database being prepared for replication and specific user having privileges to connect to the database and acquire data. So we can see we've got a full bill of health. We've passed that, and we can go to continue. So here we can actually sync the connector to see what databases are available for this specific user to do replication on. So you can see testdb1 is in there already. I've already done the sync connector, so no need to do this again. And we'll connect on continue. Okay, so we've got some advanced options in here, and this is more on the performance tuning side of things. So as I mentioned, Arcion is multi-threaded. We can spin up how many threads, max threads we want to initiate for this, as well as certain other options in here. I want to stick with the default and go ahead with specifying SQL Server in here and just continue to destination. Again, likewise with destination, we have various sources that we can connect to. And again, as I mentioned with the source, we're continually adding to this. So there'll be more destinations added to the UI as time moves on. I'm going to go back and we can see Databricks has already been configured for myself. You can see the connection configurations in here. So we've got the JDBC URL, the host, and all this information is provided to you within Databricks once you spin up a cluster itself. Again, stage type, I'm going to be using Databricks DBFS, but you can use S3 if it's AWS or Azure Blob Storage if you're using Microsoft Azure. Likewise, we can do test connection. I know this works, so I'm not going to bother with testing it again, but we're going to go ahead and go to continue. Now, because this is a target, we don't necessarily need to do a sync connector here. So again, let's continue and move on. Filter will allow Arcion to specify what is it we want to replicate from source. So Arcion, you're allowed to be granular. You don't have to replicate the entire database. You can be as granular as specifying the table, columns, even down to row level of what should be replicated. Now, the purpose of this demo, we're going to be using testdb1, and we have a single table in there called movies. So we're going to stick with that. You can manipulate the mappings between source and target. As I mentioned, Arcion does all the hard work for you. So here we will do the auto mapping, but I actually want to manipulate this because I've actually created a schema already beforehand called ZQ_DB, which I want to use. So I can go ahead and overwrite the destination name here. So we'll call this ZQ_DB. And for the rest, I want to keep it the same. So movies downstream, we'll keep the same table name and same column names as well. So I just need to save this configuration. You can see that's successfully created, and we're going to start replication. Now, once we start replication, you've noticed the dashboard has changed. So from configuration, we have now moved on to monitoring. So Arcion is all-in-one solution to help you do the configuration, the monitoring, and manageability of your ecosystem or your replication ecosystem. So you can see here that we've got some indication of what our source and target was. So it's SQL Server to Databricks. We've got the health of the replication. So right now, it's just initializing. What we're doing here is creating all the runtime components. We have a list of actions. So right now, we're just, doing things in the background to set things up, and I'll show you how you can monitor what's being done in the background. But we've also got some actions in here like stop replication. Once you've stopped, you can resume, or you can restart replication or terminate or remove the configuration itself. We've got some metrics here that we can view and manipulate as well, which I'll show you in a bit. We can see here some stats already starting to build up. So what we've done on the target is started creating the tables. And again, here's the log. So here we can see the log, so what Arcion's doing in the background. We can also isolate errors for easy troubleshooting. And for governance purposes as well, we've got an audit table here that tracks any actions that users do within Arcion itself. So again, here I can see some activities occurred. We've got the 10 inserts. So let's go back to Databricks and let's refresh this view. And you can see movies now has appeared. So we've created the target table structure. So let's ensure that we can come in here and sample the data just to make sure the 10 records have gone through. So you can see, again, nothing had to be prepared downstream. Even down to the schema level, we could have created that for you automatically. I just decided to use a different schema. So I've specified that within my configuration. So that's actually moving the base data across. Again, I mentioned we can manipulate some views. I'll show you that in a minute. But what we're going to do is let's go ahead, go to SQL Server, and let's execute that script to actually change or add some change records in there. So we can see we're going to do 8 inserts, 2 updates, and 1 delete. Okay, so let's go back into our UI. So we can see that's processing now. We've got that buffered up in memory as we connect, and you can see with the logs what we're doing in the background. Now, as I mentioned before, we can manipulate the view. So as those transactions come across, we can actually use this view and see, okay, this is a nice example. We've got some data that we can actually manage and monitor. However, if you've got large volumes of transactions and sometimes you want to see, okay, how do we manipulate the view? Because I'm not really interested in inserts, maybe just updates and deletes. So you can actually use this graph, manipulate this here, and you can see that we're just going to be monitoring for updates and deletes. So you can see here, Arcion has actually put the change records across. We can actually get more information by view in detail here. So again, we've got some statistics presented in a different way in here. Let's go back to summary. And just to make sure we got that data downstream. Okay, so now you can see it's changed. So records 11 and 13, as I mentioned, we would be updating. So we have got Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and Iron Man 2, and record number 12 has gone. So hopefully this gives you a good peek into Arcion. If this is something that's of interest and you'd like to inquire about more details, maybe talk to one of our sales representative and talk about your use case and how Arcion could fit your use case, we'd love to hear from you. Here's some contact details. You can also find us in LinkedIn as well as Twitter. Again, if it's piqued of interest to you, we'd be happy to hear from you and we look forward to hearing from you. So thank you for your time. Thank you.